Encouraging me to make my own decisions? Okay, bye. Welcome back to Reddit Chronicles. If you're new here, do consider subscribing to help me feed my channel and grow my cat. And if you liked the video, do kindly give it a thumbs up to help me out. Let's get started. So for a little bit of pre-context, I used to go to the Mormon church every Sunday. My mom is super religious, while I am not. This happened a few months ago. For whatever reason, Mormon church makes teenagers attend seminary and young men's. Seminary is an hour-long session every morning before school, which is stupid, and young men's is an event every Wednesday night, or other day depending on the activity. Basically, I had to go to most seminary and young men events because of my mom. There's a bunch of things I disagree with what the church does, and I am mentally not in the church anymore. Quick example is that they take 10% of income as tithing, which is, again, stupid. Point is, they also take up a lot of your free time, demanding you contribute and invading your personal space if you refuse. I was tasked with a project in seminary and organizing 3 events for young men's. Honestly, I was planning a hiking trip and cross-country skiing and whatnot. When I got really busy with school, I stopped going to seminary as I wanted an extra hour of sleep. Guess what? The church pestered me and harassed me for not going to seminary. Oh, it's important. My ass, it's important. Blah blah blah. I didn't go to seminary and they continued to harass me. Come time, they started encouraging us to use our agency. They made a whole 3-hour-long service talking about agency and the importance of it. Agency, to my understanding, is the ability for an individual to make one's own decisions to find out the truth. They started saying this as a motivator to be more active in the church and find stories that prove the church to be true. But I did the opposite. Cue Malicious Compliance. So instead of researching about why the church is true, I found out about why it's a whole goddamn corporate lie for money, basically. I used my agency to find the real truth about the church. For my seminary project, I made a whole presentation about the negative aspects of the church and why we need to be more careful with what's happening. r/ex-Mormon, I thank you. I talked about Joseph Smith and his 30-something teenage wives, the hypocrisy in the church, and the amount of suicides and whatnot that came of the church. Then I left. They didn't have anything else planned for young men's. They invaded my house to try and get me to go back. They gave me calls to bring me back. It was pretty simple, what I would say. I'm utilizing my agency. Please respect that. They didn't have young men's for a month because I wasn't there to organize anything else. Not only that, my presentations also encouraged other people, some of my acquaintances, to stop going to church too. It may not seem like a big deal, but this is a big church, and bringing it down as much as I can brings me joy, especially after all that pain it's caused me. I'm glad to say I've gotten my hour of sleep back, and now my Sunday is free for watching Endgame. I can solve this bullying problem. A simple story, and it still makes me smile a couple of years later. A little background. My ex is awesome. Her and I were just not meant for each other. She loves our son, but she hates confrontation. She also works for the school board, so she has to behave a certain way. I, on the other hand, have a tendency to scare people. I'm a large person, and since I work in the trades, I do not have to look or act in any way whatsoever. The story. My son, who had been taking Taekwondo for about 4 years at the time, was being bullied at school. I guess the bully was her relative in some way, because she told my son not to be a tattletale. My son once again did the right thing and told his mother, who he lives with. I work in the oil field, so I'm not always in the city. She decided not to follow up because she doesn't want to stir the pot at work. My son called me and told me what happened. I talked to his mom and verified the story. I asked her why she hadn't done anything about it, and she said that if I really cared, I would do something. You want me to take care of this? Okay. Cue the Malicious Compliance. I made an appointment with the principal for my next week off. Myself and my son met with the principal and the teacher in question. I explained the situation and asked what was to be done. The principal said that this was the first time he was hearing about it, but the teacher claimed that it did not happen. I turned to my son and said, "The next time that kid bullies you, I give you permission to punch him in the throat." The principal and the teacher both looked at me like I was about to kill them. The principal said, "You can't say that." I asked, "Are you sure? Let me try again and find out." "Hey boy, the next time that kid bullies you, you have my permission to punch him in the throat." "Holy crap, you were wrong. I totally can say that." The bullying stopped. "I don't care if he's dead. Put him on the phone." I was sent here on a recommendation from another sub with a story you guys might like. First time poster, iMobile, etc. TLDR at the bottom. My father died on Father's Day 2012. He was divorced and living alone, and I'm an only child. So that means I had to wrap up all of his affairs. This story centers around us trying to get his utilities cancelled. I called in to see what we had to do to get them to cancel. The lady I spoke with on the phone said to send in his certified death certificate. I sent in the certified copy of his death certificate the next day. The next month, got another bill. I called again, and a new woman answered. She said that because I wasn't on the account, she had to speak with the account holder. I informed her that the account holder was dead, but she wouldn't budge. I had to make an appointment with a supervisor so she could speak to him herself in person. I showed up at the Board of Public Utilities with another death certificate and his ashes in the clear bag that they returned his remains in. I plopped them down on the center of her desk and said, when she talked to him, to tell him that I loved him for me. The woman went pale, flew out of her chair, and called the cops. When they showed up, she claimed that I had assaulted her, and yes, my dad's remains were still sitting in the middle of her desk with the death certificate. The cops questioned me as to why I would do that. I told them the story. The supervisor's boss was called in, and they all stepped away from the desk for private talk. While they were talking, the cops came over to talk to me. They said that I shouldn't take human remains out in public, but there was no laws that were broken. I said that I agreed with them that it was extreme, but she insisted to speak with him in person. By then, they were done talking between themselves. The supervisor's boss kissed up to me and got it taken care of. But the story isn't over yet. I had to call back a few days later to get utilities back to the house in my name. When the person on the phone saw the address and my name, I was immediately put on hold. The supervisor's boss that finally helped me got on the phone. She sucked up to me and waived all of the fees that came with setting up utilities. Just as the call was ending, she informed me that she was again so sorry for the employee's lack of compassion. She said that the employee was terminated, and again, she was so very sorry. TLDR, ignorant employee asked to speak to dead dad, had a meeting in person, brought his ashes, got her fired. For some reason, I get the impression these stories are rather common. When someone dies and their next of kin tries to get their affairs sorted out, but then someone from some company demands to speak to the dead person in person. I kind of wonder why that happens. If you have any thoughts or stories of your own, share them in the comment section. Scammers want to access my PC. I turn the tables and start wiping their computer. TLDR, same as the title. Background. I got our home phone number long before cell phones were a common thing to have. As things have evolved, that phone number is part of my history and is utilitarian to use for things I don't want ringing on my cell phone, like 99% of anything that requires a phone number for no good reason. So I've kept that phone number alive over the years. Most recently, I moved it a few years back to an online service that charges a tiny amount of money per month to host it for me. I access it via a session initiation protocol client on my computer. The story. Because of the nature of the phone number, it randomly rings, if I have time to mess with whoever is calling. Most of the calls are, "Your car warranty is about to expire" kind. Some of the calls are about non-existent credit cards. My favorite calls are the scammers. I record all calls that come into this phone number. In my state, only one person needs to know that a call is being recorded. And besides, these scammers are all overseas, so I really do not care about their laws. So when a scammer calls, I tend to answer and play along. Sometimes, these calls last a few minutes before they give up on me. Today, I set a new record, a total of 1 hour of their time wasted. The call comes in as normal. I string the guy along. I play dumb. I keep them thinking I'm an easy target. After 40 minutes, I tell him I have to hang up, and could he call me back in an hour? To my surprise, this idiot calls me back, so I decided to see if I could get him to let me connect to him by continuing to play dumb. My plan is based on knowing that they have a handful of tools at their disposal, easiest of which is TeamViewer. So I play along until they get me on a TeamViewer, but I never give them the real information on my end, and I just ask for my partner ID. The idea is that with TeamViewer, you can switch who is showing the screen after you make the initial connection. I know that I have but a few precious seconds of time if I manage to get them to give me their ID and password to make my plan happen. So I have a dummy terminal set aside for all this. I quickly write out my set of commands so I can copy them to my clipboard and launch them as soon as I get connected. Sure enough, they give me their ID and password. I'm ready, and I strike. Paste the commands into a run window and let it rip. As I see the window pop up with a command prompt and the deletion of folders starts, the guy starts to stutter and asks, "What are you doing, sir?" I keep playing dumb until my connection is terminated. Files have been deleted. The scammer is pissed. He starts to curse at me. I eventually start taunting him and cursing back at him. After a while, he hangs up. That's a job well done. And apparently this is quite common. There's even a TED video about it. I'll put it in the description. If you want more where that came from, simply click on one of these boxes right here. And if you liked the video, I assume you did since you're still here, share it with your friends to see what they think. And of course, if you haven't already, click the kitty to subscribe and you'll never miss another video. I'll see you in the next episode of Reddit Chronicles.